In the spring of 2001, Anabel Collins stepped into a life of luxury, married to one of the wealthiest men in the city. To the outside world, she had everything: a grand home, glittering social events, and the promise of a fairy tale future. But the truth was never so simple. Over the next 6 years, whispers of arguments and broken promises drifted through the halls of her marriage. Friends wondered why a woman so full of hope grew quieter with each passing year, why her laughter faded behind closed doors. Then, without warning, Anabel vanished. No note, no explanation. One morning she was there. The next, she had become a name on a missing persons poster. For 3 long years, investigators chased every lead. Family and neighbors held their breath, desperate for a glimpse of the woman they thought they knew. Was she hiding by choice, or had something happened to her? In 2010, the trail went cold and the world moved on. But fate has a way of returning the past when you least expect it. Because in 2021, halfway across the ocean, the husband who thought he'd lost her forever saw a familiar face that shattered the quiet life he had rebuilt. And so begins a story of hope betrayed, of choices made in the shadows, and of a reunion that would ignite a chain of events no one could have foreseen. Welcome to True Crime Chronicle, where we uncover true crime stories that grip you to your seat and reveal the dark corners of the human heart. New here? Smash that subscribe button and hit like. To our loyal crime community, welcome back. Let's dive into the mystery and unlock darker secrets. Before the glittering events and high-stakes arguments, Anabel Collins was the youngest of 3 sisters in a tight-knit Midwestern family. Growing up in a modest home on Elm Street, she spent summers helping her grandmother tend roses in the backyard and winters curled up with her nose in a book. Even as a child, she showed an adventurous streak, organizing neighborhood scavenger hunts and teaching herself French from library tapes. By the time Anabel graduated high school, her circle of friends describe her as both generous and fiercely determined. She dreamed of studying art history in Paris, of walking through museum halls and uncovering hidden masterpieces. But college tuition loomed large, and her parents encouraged her to stay close to home, enroll at the state university, and help with the family's small bookkeeping business. Across town, Adam Schultz grew up under a different sky. The son of a forklift operator and school custodian, he learned early the value of hard work. Weekends found him repairing lawn mowers or washing cars in the local garage. Yet beneath his callous hands and oil-stained jeans, he harbored a poet's heart, writing verses about summer storms and midnight streetlights. They came from 2 worlds that rarely collided, until the night of the citywide blackout in October 1999. A sudden failure in the power grid left every streetlight dead and every storefront dark. Downtown's annual Harvest Festival was in full swing at the old market square when the lights went out and a hush fell over the crowd. Anabel, there to sketch the festival's lantern display for her art portfolio, fumbled for a flashlight near a row of amber pumpkins. At the same moment, Adam, on his way home from a late shift, ducked under the same tent to escape a sudden gust of wind. They reached for the same lantern, their fingers brushing against the cool metal. "Oh, I'm sorry," Anabel said, steadying the lamp. Adam smiled, voice soft in the hush. "No harm done. Can't very well admire the lanterns in the dark." That simple exchange broke the silence. With candlelight flickering between them, they discovered shared laughter. Anabel teasing Adam about his paint-splattered boots, Adam recounting the time he tried painting matchbox cars as a child. In those few minutes, strangers became friends, and friends became something more. Over the next weeks, their connection deepened in unexpected ways. Studying together under the dorm's lone working lamp, exchanging battered paperback novels at the campus coffee shop, and writing letters when Anabel returned home for the holidays. Those first sparks of young love carried a promise neither had experienced before, a promise that would follow Anabel from that blackout night all the way to the world she would later marry into. On a warm June afternoon in 2001, the gates of Davenport Hall opened to reveal a scene of unexpected elegance. Rows of white chairs lined the manicured lawn, each adorned with single pale rose, a nod to Annabel's childhood garden. Soft rays of sunlight filtered through the ancient oaks, casting dancing patterns on the polished marble aisle. Anabel emerged from the bridal suite in a gown of ivory silk, its delicate lace bodice echoing the curves of her grandmother's rose petals. She paused at the threshold, heart racing, as her father took her hand. In her palm lay a single pressed bloom from her grandmother's garden, a silent reminder of home even as she stepped into a new world. At the altar stood Jake's Davenport, his tailored tuxedo sharp against a lush green backdrop. He brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead, blinking against the glare as he fought to keep his composure. Around him, business associates and socialites exchanged impressed glances. This was a union of a year. The minister began with a few measured words about partnership and loyalty. When it was Anabel's turn to speak, her voice trembled at first, then grew steady. "I promise to stand beside you, to cherish moments of joy and to face every challenge with an open heart." Across from her, Jake's vow was succinct yet earnest. "I will honor you, protect you, and share my life's journey." As they exchanged rings, Anabel's a slender band crowned with a single diamond. Jake's is a wide gold circle engraved with their initials. A gentle breeze stirred. Petals drifted down from the canopy, and for a moment, every guest leaned forward, caught between awe and delight. In that instant, Anabel's smile was radiant, hope and excitement glimmering in her eyes. Jake's returned the smile, though behind his calm a flicker of uncertainty passed. Neither could know this day would mark both the beginning and, in time, the turning point of the story neither bride nor groom could have fully anticipated. The first year of their marriage passed in a swirl of society events and whispered congratulations. On the surface, everything looked seamless. Anabel dazzled at charity galas and gowns that caught every camera flash, and Jake's closed million-dollar deals with effortless charm. Yet behind closed doors, small tensions began to flicker, moments so slight they went unnoticed by most. It started with the guest list. Anabel, who loved hosting intimate dinners for friends, found her gathering slowly replaced by extravagant receptions filled with unfamiliar faces. Each invitation she extended seemed to vanish into Jake's calendar, only to be replaced by boardroom lunches or industry awards. A plate placed on the dining table, a forgotten RSVP. These minor slights felt like growing distances between them. By year 2, Anabel's laughter over morning coffee had become rare. She confided to her sister, "He wants everything arranged his way, even the color of the napkins at dinner." Jake's, ever perfectionist, viewed her concerns as distractions from his responsibilities. When Anabel gently suggested they see a counselor, he waved it off. "We're fine," he'd say, eyes fixed on his silver cufflinks. Years 3 and 4 brought deeper challenges. Anabel petitioned for a divorce, tipped off by a lawyer in the family's fold. She'd slipped the papers onto Jake's desk one morning, hoping for a calm discussion. Instead, she found them gone the next day, and his forgiveness impossible to win. He insisted their vows were more than words, that she owed him loyalty in exchange for the life he provided. Their apartment on Maple Drive became a map of unspoken frustrations, a half-read novel on the sofa, a shoe left by the door, a framed photo turned face down on a side table. Each detail told a story neither spoke aloud. Friends sensed the strain. Texts from Anabel went unanswered. Invitations disappeared into a silence that spread through her once vibrant world. The 5th year introduced an unexpected fracture, Jake's business trip to Milan. He returned with gift boxes and stories of art auctions, yet Anabel noticed the way he avoided her gaze. When she asked about the woman seated next to him at the gala, he dismissed it as idle curiosity. But Anabel's intuition grew sharper. The woman's name whispered through emails she wasn't meant to see. By the 6th anniversary, the couple stood at a crossroads. Anabel, gathering courage, drafted yet another request for separation. She'd rehearsed the words countless times. This time, she vowed he would listen. But Jake's, cornered by the idea of splitting his fortune, refused to sign. He turned her plea into a promise she could never claim, insisting that walking away meant forfeiting everything she'd ever known. And so, in the quiet hours before dawn on their 6th year together, Anabel made a choice. She packed a single suitcase and slipped out into the night, leaving behind the life she once dreamed of. No one saw her go, only a faint echo of her footsteps on the driveway, fading into a darkness that would engulf her story for years to come. On the morning of June 12th, 2007, Anabel Collins followed her usual routine: black coffee at dawn, a quick call to her assistant, then out the door to her errands. But when her phone began ringing at noon, the line went straight to voicemail. No message ever arrived. By early afternoon, a concerned colleague reached her house to drop off a message, and on getting there found the front door unlocked. She entered inside and found Jakes on the sofa face down as though he was perplexed. She asked about the whereabouts of Anabel, and he replied, "I should be asking you that." By the end of that conversation, they both realized that Anabel was neither at home nor work. That evening, Jake stood before a wall plastered with missing persons posters, Anabel's face peering back at him, eyes wide with questions he couldn't answer. His voice cracked as he spoke to their neighbor, who also came asking after Anabel. "She wouldn't just walk away without telling me." Within hours, the police were alerted and the detectives combed to the area and phone records, tracing Anabel's last contact to a brief call at 9:47 a.m. to a number registered in their own home. Then the trail went cold. "We followed every ping," the lead detective later explained. "From the towers along Elm Street all the way to the outskirts of town. Every signal turned into a dead end." Back at the mansion, investigators tore through closets and cabinets. They found nothing out of place, no note, no sign of a struggle. They tested fingerprints on doorknobs, scanned the CCTV in the neighborhood, and came up empty. Outside, neighbors clustered on the sidewalk, eyes scanning the house that had once seemed so ordinary. Mrs. Nolan, who lived 2 doors down, remembered the moment she heard sirens. "I saw officers walking in and out," she recalled, voice trembling. "It felt like our quiet street had suddenly been rewritten." As word spread, concerned neighbors appeared on camera, tears brimming as they gazed at the house with sirens blaring. "Please," one begged, voice wavering, "if you know anything, no matter how small, help us bring her home." Yet the harder they looked, the less they found. No ransom demand, no reliable sighting, just the echo of a life interrupted. And so the questions multiplied. Had Anabel chosen to vanish? Or had someone taken her? Was there a secret she carried, or a danger none of them saw? In the days that followed, every unanswered ring, every empty room, and every silent phone became another piece of a puzzle with no solution, leaving those left behind to wonder whether the next knock at their door would bring news or only more silence. By mid-2010, the investigation had yielded nothing new. The lead detective stood before the press and declared Anabel Collins a long-term missing person. Her file moved to the cold case archives. Behind closed doors, Jakes vowed to honor her memory even as he resolved to rebuild his life. Within a year, he met Celine Marshall. Their courtship was quiet, almost accidental, an art exhibit opening, a shared laugh over spilled wine. In 2012, they married. 2 children followed. First a daughter, then a son. Celine would later describe their home as a place of second chances, where joy could grow alongside remembrance. To the wider world, the Collins disappearance faded into distant headlines. True crime podcasts and cold case files episodes recap the basics, then turned to fresher mysteries. Anabel's name slipped into footnotes, her absence a faint echo in the halls of unsolved stories. Fast forward to 2021. Jakes was on vacation with friends in the Bahamas. A break he really needed from both work and family. Laughter mixing with the crash of waves and the shimmer of midday sun. He lounged by the water, carefree, until he looked up. A figure crossed the beach, her hair tied back, arms wrapped around a small child. Jake sat up, breath catching in his throat. He blinked once, twice. Could it really be her? The woman he hadn't seen in more than a decade? Standing there with a family of her own? He stared and asked himself. His pulse thundered as he reached for his phone, but the screen stayed dark. He swallowed hard, uncertain whether to speak or run. They found themselves face to face on a quiet terrace overlooking the beach. Jakes' voice trembled as he spoke the words he'd rehearsed 1,000 times. "Anabel, after all these years, is that really you?" Anabel's eyes narrowed, guarded but steady. Her voice held the weight of every lonely night that had led her here. Anabel replied, "I had to save myself, Jakes. You wouldn't let me go." In the space between them, Memories flickered. A woman's tear-streaked face clutching divorce papers. A man's grip tightening on a checkbook. The echo of their arguments, promises made and broken, collapsed into the present moment. Tension mounted in a single heartbeat. Jakes reached out, anger and disbelief warring behind his eyes. The next instant, the air split with impact. Fists met flesh. Anabel stumbled backward, and she fell and bashed her bead on a little rock. Silence followed, and Jakes, realizing what had just happened, fled the scene into hiding. Minutes later, some beachgoers who had seen both Anabel and Jakes earlier turned and saw the body of Anabel on the floor and rushed to see what had happened. One recounted saying, "1 minute they were talking, the other minute a body is down with blood, and the other person is nowhere to be seen." They raised an alarm and called for help. An ambulance siren cut through the night air. Flashing lights illuminated the stretcher as paramedics loaded Anabel into the back of the vehicle. In the hospital hallways, machines whirred. CT scans revealed bleeding around her brain, injuries that left no room for doubt. Her condition is critical, and they were uncertain of the outcome, said the doctor. Minutes later, her heart stopped and the doctor pronounced her dead at 6:56 p.m. Her new family and friends burst into tears. Her new husband Adam raged and wept and swore to get justice for what has transpired. In the hush that followed, grief settled like fallen leaves. Questions hung in the air. What really happened? Who was she with by the beachside? Would the truth ever surface? And as they lowered her coffin, those left behind understood that some wounds run deeper than loss, and that the story was far from over. In the months after Anabel's death, Adam Schultz refused to remain silent. He had a lead, Jakes. He went on to hire a private investigator who worked round the clock, tracing phone records, scanning travel logs, and piecing together the path that led Jakes back to that Bahamian villa. "I knew he'd never thought she'd return," the investigator later recounted. "But once we had that resort booking and the villa address, Adam had his chance." Late one evening, Adam slipped past security gates into the villa's courtyard. He moved with purpose, memories of Anabel's bruised face propelling him forward. When Jakes appeared on the balcony above, Adam's voice broke the night air. "You destroyed her and you walked away." Adam said. The confrontation turned swift. In the silent tension that followed, Adam's mind raced with every moment Anabel had suffered. Within hours, police were called to the scene. News cameras flashed as reporters announced. Tycoon found dead at luxury villa, and ex-lover arrested in revenge killing. It didn't take long before the grand jury convened. Prosecutors presented the weapon, Jakes' own heavy brass cufflink case, and fingerprints stamped clear on its surface. They argued Adam had planned his actions, fueled by anger and grief. Defense attorneys countered with a plea of provocation, citing the period Anabel had lingered between life and death. They introduced experts on battered spouse syndrome, arguing Adam's actions sprang from a desperate need to avenge a woman who had no other champion. In court, the medical examiner described the blunt force trauma that had felled Jakes. Then came character witnesses for Anabel, friends who testified to her courage and to the letters she'd written pleading for safety. Each narrative wove together the story of a woman trapped by love and money. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned to the courtroom. The foreperson stood and read the verdict. Guilty of voluntary manslaughter. The judge then pronounced the sentence. 25 years behind bars. In that moment, the balance of justice felt both settled and incomplete. For those who still remembered Anabel's bright promise, the question remained, had Adam delivered true justice, or simply extended the cycle of loss? In the weeks that followed the verdict, two families found themselves bound by grief and reflection. Celine Davenport faced a new reality, without Jakes by her side. "He was my partner in everything," she would say, voice quiet yet steady. "Losing him reopened wounds I never knew were still there, and I've had to become both mother and memory keeper for our children." Across town, Anabel's parents wrestled with a different kind of sorrow. The moment they learned of their daughter's fate, relief and heartbreak collided. Her father admitted, "We mourn her life, but we mourn the way she left us even more." Her mother spoke of the bittersweet comfort in knowing Anabel's truth at last, yet anguish for every year spent wondering. Beyond the families, the wider community grappled with what had transpired. Online forums buzzed with heated debates. Had Adam delivered rightful justice, or had he stepped into dangerous territory? Some argued the sentence was too lenient for a man who was killed in cold blood. Others insisted the court had appropriately recognized the complexity of his motive. Among those discussions emerged fresh questions that no courtroom could fully answer. Why had Anabel waited 13 years to make herself visible again? Had she feared Jake's influence? Or did something else keep her hidden all that time? And what of Jake's himself? Friends recalled his stubborn refusal to grant a divorce, even as Anabel's letters piled up. Did he ever consider letting her walk away with her dignity in her dreams? Then there were whispers of a hush-money offer, a confidential meeting, an unsigned check passed under the table. No documents ever surfaced, but the rumor persisted. Had someone tried to buy Anabel's silence before she vanished? In quiet moments, those closest to the case admitted that some mysteries might never unravel. The life she'd built in the Bahamas, choices she made in the shadows, and the final reckoning all pointed to truths too tangled for any single explanation. And so the story remains, a tapestry of love and loss, justice and retribution, with threads that still pull at the edges of what we think we know. After all the twists of fate, from a marriage built on promise to a disappearance that spanned more than a decade, this story reminds us how fragile freedom can be, and how the quest for it can change lives forever. Jakes thought he controlled every outcome. Anabel believed escape would bring her peace. Adam pursued what he saw as justice. In the end, each paid a price no one expected. In the pursuit of freedom, some pay the ultimate price. And sometimes, justice comes at a cost no one can afford. If this journey held your attention, please hit like and subscribe to support our channel. Share your thoughts below. Which unanswered question lingers most for you? And if you're hungry for more, stay tuned. Coming up in our next episode, the unsolved mystery of a family's disappearance. Stay tuned, but until then, stay away from crime.